Good evening and welcome to CYC News for today, the 19th of March 2017 and the 10th of Barmhat 1733 AM. I'm Justina Twadros, and in today's headlines, Assad calls the US military forces in Syria invaders, Turkey suspends high-level diplomatic relations with the Dutch, Islamist rebels claim responsibility for the twin blast in Damascus. Presidents of Turkey and Russia handle against the backdrop of Syrian war. Deadly cobra on the loose in Central Florida, and a new drug for breast cancer sufferers. To our top story, tensions arise as Syrian President Bashar al-Assad scoffed and questioned the US actions in Syria, calling American troops deploying to the country invaders because he hadn't given permission for them to enter the country, and saying there's been no concrete action from the Trump administration towards ISIS. Assad was quoted, "Any foreign troops coming to Syria without our invitation or consultation or permission, they are invaders, whether they are American, Turkish or any other. And we don't think this is going to help. What are they going to do to fight ISIS? The Americans lost nearly every war. They lost in Iraq, they had to withdraw at the end. Even in Somalia, let alone Vietnam in the past, and Afghanistan, your neighboring country. They didn't succeed anywhere. They only created a mess. They are very good in creating problems and destroying, but they are very bad in finding solutions." The Syrian leader made the comments in an interview with Chinese media outlet Phoenix TV. It was published on the Syrian state news agency Sana on Saturday. US officials confirmed that the US Marines have arrived in northern Syria with artillery to support US-backed local forces fighting there, US officials said. The US-backed fighters are preparing to move in the coming weeks to assault the city of Raqqa, ISIS's self-declaring capital. The Pentagon and Marine Corps have declined to confirm the deployment because of security concerns in the region. They have also declined to specify the exact location of the forces or how many are there. The US has also deployed approximately 100 Army Rangers in and around Manjabi, Syria. US officials have taken the unusual step of publicly talking about the Ranger deployment and where they are located to protect against them inadvertently coming under fire from forces fighting in the region or Turkish, Russian or Syrian forces. The US troops in Manbiji are trying to deter hostilities due to their visible presence, rather than the typical mission of training, advising and assisting local forces. Turkey will not allow the Dutch ambassador to Ankara to return to Turkey and has suspended high-level diplomatic relations between the two countries, a top government official has said. Deputy Turkish Prime Minister Numan Kur-Almos announced the freeze of Ankara Monday amid an escalating row over Turkish officials assessing the Netherlands. Over the weekend, the Netherlands refused to allow Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu to visit Rotterdam for a political rally. Cavusoglu asked in an interview with CNN, "Why this time? Am I a terrorist? Are the Turks living in this country terrorists?" Soon after, Cavusoglu was refused entry. The Dutch stopped Turkey's Family Affairs Minister Fatma Batul Sayan Kaya from entering the Turkish consulate in Rotterdam. She was later escorted out of the country. Violent clashes erupted after the two ministers were prevented from addressing rallies in Rotterdam, where they hoped to drum up support for an April 16 referendum to give greater to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. An umbrella group of Syrian Islamist rebels has claimed responsibility for two bombings in Damascus Saturday that killed more than 70 people. Iraq Foreign Minister spokesman Ahmad Jamal announced that the twin blasts hit buses of Iraqi pilgrims at the Bab al-Saghar cemetery in Damascus. As of Sunday, the death toll had reached 74, according to the US-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. At least 20 victims were members of the Syrian regime forces and militants loyal to the Syrian regime. Bab al-Saghar is a sacred cemetery in the southern section of the Old City, where descendants and companions of the Prophet Muhammad are buried. Shiites making pilgrimages to the site to pay respects to the descendants of Ali, the Prophet's cousin, who are buried there. The first explosion happened near the cemetery, according to the observatory, and the second happened nearby as visitors gathered to witness to the destruction. Iran and Syria are allies. Iran's militants, together with the Iranian-backed militants from Lebanon, have been fighting side by side with Syrian regime forces against the rebels. Syria has been engulfed in a civil war for 6 years, marked by Sunni-Shiite sectarian conflict. Last year, ISIS claimed responsibility for deadly attacks near the Revered Lady Zainab Shiite Muslim shrine on the southern outskirts of Damascus. Iraq has also experienced similar attacks. Leaders of Turkey and Israel find themselves inside the walls of the Kremlin in the next 2 days as President Vladimir Putin tries to entrench Russia's resurgent roles in the Middle East. Putin's interest hardly coincides with those of the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan or Israel President Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, especially in Syria. But as the Trump administration is yet to work out its Middle East policy, Russia has unprecedented leverage in the region. Here is a very basic outline of each leader's priorities. Putin consolidates Russia's leading role in Syria, preserves a delicate entente with Turkey in leading the Syrian peace process, and continue to try to coax it away from Europe and NATO as part of a broader strategy of weakening the Western allies. Netanyahu persuades Russia to help reduce and minimize Iran's influence in Syria, and by extension, Lebanon. Underscore good personal rapport with Putin. Erdogan promotes Turkey's interests in Syria, if possible at the expense of Kurds, and secures a role in the offensive against Raqqa. Put the US on notice that there are alternatives to American leadership in the region. Still in Turkey, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited his Russian counterparts Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Friday as the two top leaders worked to coordinate their military and diplomatic moves in the 6-year-old Syrian conflict and deepen their economic ties. Relations between the countries had soared since Turkey's Air Force shot down a Russian jet at the Syrian-Turkish border in 2015. The incident kicked off a tumultuous year of relations between the two nations. In recent months, the two leaders have shown unity as they've emerged as significant powers in the Syrian conflict. Friday's meeting under the high-level Russian-Turkish Cooperation Council format was the first of its kind since 2014, Putin said. "We are very happy our interstate relations are restoring rather quickly," Putin said during the meeting with Erdogan. According to the Russian state-run TASS news agency, Putin cited close working relations between Turkish and Russian military and intelligence authorities. President Putin said, "We are working actively on settlement of most acute crisis in the world, first of all in Syria. I'm pleased to say nobody has expected, but at the level of military authorities' intelligence services, we have a very trustful, very effective dialogue. Trade and economics relations are also developing according to President Putin." Whereas President Erdogan said defense industry and energy cooperation were main elements of cooperation, citing the development of gas pipelines and nuclear power plants. There was a gap in the work of the high-level Russian-Turkish Cooperation Council, Erdogan said. "As you know, we have recently met at the World Energy Forum. The forum was highly effective, in particular in the context of our contacts. Cooperations between Russia and Turkey is of special significance." Erdogan said he is sure that this meeting will contribute to the further development of their relations. Over to the United States, where the search continues for a deadly cobra that escaped from an enclosed at the home of an owner in Ocala, according to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. The owner called the commission late Monday to let officials know that his 2-foot-long Sufa cobra had escaped. The commission stated that an FWC investigator, Ocala Police, and Maroon Country Fire Rescue couldn't find the reptile. Authorities then alerted nearby residents. The snake's owner has been licensed to have the cobra since May 2016, according to Robert Klepper, spokesman for the Law and Enforcement Division of the FWC. The owner also owned a Gabon viper and an African bush viper. FWC requires rooms where venomous reptiles are kept to escape-proof. Investigators will be looking into whether the owner violated any regulations. In health, many more women could be helped by a new type of breast cancer drug, according to experts. Biological therapies are currently only available as part of clinical trials, but hold great promise. Expert estimates as many as 1 in 5 patients might benefit, and around 10,000 women a year in the UK might benefit from a new type of breast cancer treatment. Biological therapies can help fight breast cancers caused by rare inherited genetic errors like the BRCA, which actress Angelina Jolie carries. Now, a new study by experts at the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute suggests that these targeted drugs may also work in many other women who do not have these risky genes. The drugs could be effective in 5 breast cancers, says the researchers. That's 20% of patients, which is far more than 1 to 5% who develop the cancer alongside having faulty BRCA genes. One biological therapy, or PRP inhibitors, called olaparib, is already used on the NHS to treat advanced ovarian cancer. It is not yet approved as a breast cancer drug, although some UK women are taking it in clinical trials. For the latest work published in the journal Nature Medicine, the researchers looked at the genetic makeup of breast cancer in 560 different patients. They found a significant proportion of them had genetic errors or mutational signatures that were very similar to the faulty BRCA. They reasoned that given the close similarity, these cancers might be treatable with biological therapies too. They recommended clinical trials to confirm this. Broanes Deleth Morgan from Breast Cancer Now called the early results a revelation. We hope now that it can lead to a watershed moment for the use of mutational signatures in treating the disease. She said, biological therapies have already had some promising results for treating prostate cancer. They change the way cells work and help the body control the growth of cancer. And finally, to sport, number 8, Vinny Vunipola and wing Anthony Watson returned to the starting 15 as England aims to win the 6th Nationals Grand Slam against Ireland. Vunipola replaces Nathan Hughes and Watson comes in for Jack Noel in the 2 changes in the side that thrashed Scotland to win the 6 Nations. Elliot Daly is fit to start on the left wing after a head knock. England are chasing a record-breaking 19th straight win, while victory will also secure back-to-back Grand Slams. Flanker Tom Wood is set to win his 50th cap from the bench. Vunipola made his comeback from a knee injury against Scotland, while Watson returned following a hamstring problem. Both scored ties from the bench in the Calcutta Cup match. Daly was forced off in the win over Scotland after an illegal tip tackle that earned Scotland hooker Fraser Brown a yellow card, but has been declared fit to play after tests for a possible concussion. England head coach Eddie Jones said, "We're very excited ahead of a huge opportunity. It's going to be quite an occasion in Dublin, as we understand we have been prepared emotionally, physically and mentally. Ireland not having anything to play for means they have the courage to fail, which frees them up mentally. We're a little bit vulnerable because we have already been crowned the 6 Nations champions and had a big win against Scotland. For us, it's getting the right mindset for the game." And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm Justina Tuadros, and from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, have a good night.